Hello Dragonlings, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Sky. I typically write paranormal romance under the name SD Haggis. For today's video, we're doing the 20 questions book tag. I was originally tagged by Sam Wicker over on her channel, writer Sam Wicker. Thank you for tagging me, Sam. I enjoy doing tags, I just don't do them a lot of times. And I'm not very often tagged, or if I am tagged, I just don't know about it. I do have a bunch of tags I do want to do, and I'm just making this number 1 because of the fact that it's the most recent one. So thank you again for tagging me. I'm going to enjoy answering these questions. The original creator of this tag was actually not on YouTube. It was originally a questionnaire over on Goodreads created by Buy the Book. Links for everyone is going to be in the description below, so feel free to check that out if you want to learn more about this. Question 1. How many books are too many books in a book series? The real question is, how many times can we say the word books in one question? To answer the question, though, I don't think there is such a thing as too many books in a series. I don't enjoy reading longer series as much as I do shorter series, and I generally find myself not reading a series past book 7 to 10. It's not that there's anything wrong with the series, it's just that I get bored with the fact that the characters have not found their happily ever after yet, so I don't continue reading, especially since there's so many books out there that do wrap up, and I tend to read those. That being said, if each book in the series follows a different set of characters, I am more likely to continue reading past that point because each set of characters has the option of finding their happily ever after, basically. Question 2. How do you feel about cliffhangers? I have mixed feelings about cliffhangers. If done correctly, cliffhangers are really good. They make you want to read the next book, while at the same time, it should wrap up the plot of the book you're actually reading. All too often, I'm noticing what people think a cliffhanger is not what I believe a cliffhanger is, because nothing is wrapped up in the book and it will just end without any actual wrap up. And it's a plot gimmick just to make you buy the next book, but all it does is actually piss me off. But a good cliffhanger where everything is wrapped up but you are still left with some lingering questions is good in my opinion. Question 3. Hardback or paperback? This is the age-old question, and I feel like I've answered this before, but just to recap, between these two, I prefer paperback, but neither of these are actually my favorite way to read books these days. Question 4. Favorite book? I recently did a book recommendation video where I talked about this book, which will be linked both in the cards and the description, and that is Magic's Pawn by Mercedes Lackey. This is the first book in the Last Herald Mage series, which is a trilogy of 3 books, and I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It is one of my all-time favorite books, and I reread it at least once a year. And I should actually be rereading it soon just because I really want to. Question 5. Least favorite book. My least favorite book in the entire world is 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James. I read this for the first time when I was working at a used bookstore, and a lot of customers were asking if we had copies of it. So when we finally got a copy in, I went ahead and read it just so I could see what all the hype was about, and I hated myself for doing it. First of all, the BDSM in the book is not BDSM. It is abuse. You can fight me on that all you want, but as someone who actually is into BDSM, I can tell you that that's not what BDSM is. BDSM is all about consent, and there was almost no consent anywhere in that damn book. The second thing that I hated about it was the fact that this character is so damn stupid, and the grammar in the book where she just repeats herself, and her inner monologue where she calls her, basically her vagina, a goddess, of just like, what? It's, don't even really get me started. If you want to know more about my thoughts on this book, I have not made a video about it, but fellow authortuber Caro Brown has made a drunk book review on 50 Shades of Grey, and I will link that in the description below because almost all of her thoughts on this book reflect mine perfectly. And it's beautiful. You should go watch it and check it out. But yes, this is my least favorite book. It can go burn. It should never have been made a movie. Ugh. Question 6. Love triangles. Yes or no? A long time ago, I would have said no to love triangles, and I really do think it is a very overly used trope, especially in YA fiction. That being said, I have discovered a couple of recent books that do love triangles, and it's just the way it's done is a little more interesting than the typical love triangle, and I'm here for those. So, depending on the way it's used, I am here for it. I am especially here for it if it turns into a polyamorous relationship, since I am, in fact, polyamorous myself. So give me more of the love that may start off as jealousy and turns into actual romance. Give me that. I'm here for this. But love triangles where it's two guys in love with one girl, she has to pick between the two guys, I'm over that trope. I would rather read something where a girl likes two guys and those two guys like each other. To me, that's a beautiful love triangle, and I am here for that. But typical love triangles, one girl, two guys are after, she must choose. I'm done with it. Question 7. The most recent book you just couldn't finish. Late last year, I started reading Depression Hates a Moving Target. This is an autobiography from Nita Sweeney, and I liked the premise of the book, but the longer I read it, the more I just couldn't bring myself to finish it. It was a hard read because of the fact that it's talking about depression and anxiety and other mental health issues. But at the same time, there was a lot of disconnect with it because there'd be times when someone's name wasn't mentioned for like pages at a time. And then all of a sudden there was a one-word name drop, and I had no idea who they were talking about because that person had never been referred to by their name in the previous pages. And just all of a sudden it would be used once and then again, never again. And I was just, that happens so often, I just couldn't bring myself to finish it. Someday I would actually like to reread it and finish it all the way through because I think it would be interesting to find out more about how this worked for Anita, but I haven't done it yet and I can't bring myself to do it just because it's too soon. I will try again at a later date. Question 8. A book you're currently reading. I am currently reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. This was a recommendation from 2 people, I believe. Most recently from Dal Cecil Runo, whose channel I will link in the description below. But I believe that this has been recommended to me in the past by Caro Brown as well, though I could be wrong about that. I'm finally getting to it. It is really hard for me to read this. There are some things that I don't agree with because of the fact that I'm goal-oriented and this person is very against setting goals. I understand why, but it is rubbing me the wrong way, so it is really hard for me to read it, but I'm making my way through it slowly. Question 9. Last book you recommended to someone. This isn't a book I read for myself, but it did pop up in my Amazon We Think You Might Like to Read This list, and Dal was looking for books on runes and asking for suggestions, so I went ahead and sent this to her as a possible book for her to read, and that is Runes for Beginners by Lisa Chamberlain. And since sending her the link, I've actually added it to my own reading list, so hopefully sometime this year I will be reading it as well. Question 10. Oldest book you've read. Publication date. This one was a little difficult for me to answer just because I didn't know without doing a little bit of research. So off the fly, I automatically said one that I know I've read since I was a child, and that is A Rose, a Bridge, and a Wild Black Horse by Charlotte Zelato. This one was published in 1964 originally, but when I think back on it, some of the oldest books I've ever read were from Dr. Seuss, and the first one was published in 1937. So even though my answer is A Rose, a Bridge, and a Wild Black Horse, the more accurate answer is probably Dr. Seuss. Question 11. Newest book you've read. Publication date. Your Author Business Plan by Joanna Penn was written in December 2020, or published in December 2020, and I read it in February. I was originally supposed to finish this book in January. Tamara Woods does Writer's Workshop on the last Saturday of every month, and Your Author Business Plan was January's book, but I did not finish it in time for the live stream. You can find a link down to the live stream in the description, and I'll try to include it in the cards if I can, so that you can go find it, watch it, and see everyone's thoughts about this book. Question 12. Favorite author? This question is actually really hard for me to answer, only because while I can tell you my favorite book, I really honestly can't tell you my favorite author because I like books more than I pay attention to who wrote those books, if that makes sense. But that being said, I'm just going to say Mercedes Lackey because I haven't read very many books by Mercedes Lackey that I didn't like. So that puts her up there in the higher ranks as far as who I like best, even though I don't actually have someone I like best. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Question 13. Buying books or borrowing books? For my response, I'm going to have to say both. I'm a huge fan of borrowing books, whether it's from your library or I am actually a big fan of Kindle Unlimited. I use my Kindle Unlimited subscription to read books, and then if I like those books, I go ahead and purchase them from the author. So that's one way of looking at it. But at the same time, if you really like an author and you want all of their books, it doesn't matter what they write, go ahead, buy them. I'm an advocate for that too. Borrowing books is perfectly fine if you're low on money. The library is a wonderful tool. Use it. Question 14. A book you dislike that everyone else seems to love. For this, I'm going to have to say Divergent. It's by Veronica Roth. I've tried reading this book multiple times. I have started it and started it and started it so many times I've lost count, and I just can't seem to even get past chapter 1. I don't know what it is about this book. I just don't like it, and I can't get over the hype about it. I really can't. And especially now that I know so many people do not like how the series itself ends, I just can't bring myself to force myself to read it. I can't do it. Question 15. Bookmarks or dog ears? For me personally, I actually do both, depending on the book, but I do prefer bookmarks over dog-earing books. I will tell you straight up that I have dog-eared books if I couldn't find a bookmark, though. Generally, actually, what I do is I remember what page I'm on and just come back to that same page later without using a bookmark or a dog ear. But as I get older and my memory starts to suck more and more, I find myself using bookmarks. And if I don't have a bookmark on hand, I dog-ear that page. Question 16. A book you can always reread. I grew up on Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. This is a book by Bill Martin Jr. and John Archambault. I was in kindergarten in Montana when the authors came to the school for a visit and read it aloud to us. I grew up with this book. It was read all the time. I've been reading it to my girls every once in a while, over and over again. It is a well-loved book in my home, and I can always, always, always reread it, no matter what. Question 17. Can you read while listening to music? The short answer to this is yes. The longer answer is, after a while, it doesn't matter if I'm listening to music while writing or reading, I eventually tune it out. It just becomes white noise in the background, no matter what, whether it has lyrics or just instrumental. It will always eventually get tuned out in my brain, so that's just white noise in the background. And yes, once it hits that point, I can both read and write while listening to music. I just need that noise there to keep the ringing out of my ears, I guess. Question 18. One POV or multiple POVs? For me personally, I like one POV, one or two. The more POVs I have, the more confused I get because the more they tend to sound like each other. It also depends on the genre, because if I'm reading a romance, I don't want multiple POVs unless it's the main character and the love interest. But if it's epic fantasy, I am perfectly okay following 6 million different people around in various locations and various events. It just depends on what I'm reading, honestly. Question 19. Do you read a book in one sitting or over multiple days? Again, this depends on the book. There are books that I have devoured in just a matter of hours and books that's taken me months to read. Atomic Habits is a good example of one that's taken me a really long time to read just because it's hard for me to get through. But there has been times when I have read entire series in a single day just because I'm sitting there and doing nothing else but reading and I have all the books on hand. And for the last question, question 20, who do you tag? There are 5 people I want to specifically tag because I think they would actually respond to this tag and do it. But if you're watching this video, consider yourself tagged. The 5 specific people I'm tagging are Aphrodite Lee, J.C. Carpenter, Carol Brown, Shannon Caper, and Tamara Woods. But again, if you're watching this right now and you want to do this tag, consider yourself tagged. Go out there, have some fun, do this tag. And let me know if you do, because I want to look at it and see what your answers are versus what my answers are. Anyways, that's all I have for you guys today. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more like it, because I do plan on having some more tags come out soon. And until next time, I will see you guys all later. Bye, Dragonlings.